What's happening? What's up? Hold out your glass because we're about to fill it up. I always said that I would never bow to any corporate sponsor. But hey, rest assured, this ain't corporate. Kevlar Joe's Coffee Company, been a sponsor of my show, the Dig Bubble Podcast. They've come on board with the Prometheus lens. I'm here to tell you guys, if you like good, bold, smooth finish coffee, check these guys out. I'm a personal customer, been that way for quite some time now. The breakfast blend, real good for the morning. But then you got, for your hardcore guys that like their coffee with a little bit of legs, they have the Flightline Joe. I'm telling you, ladies, don't drink this because it's going to put hair on your chest. But no, guys, if you want to help sponsor the show, help keep the lights on, go on over to KevlarJoes.com, check out their stuff, and see what blend you like. He's got several to choose from.
Back to another episode, guys. We were back with Andrew Jones. He's agreed to show us some of the ARC scans from Ron Wyatt's expeditions and break these down. I've been really excited about this. I've seen these scans, but of course I'm a layman and just looking at them and seeing what I see. So it's really nice to have somebody with us today that can actually break these down and explain everything to us. So thanks again for coming on with us, Andrew.
No problem. Glad to be here and share what I know.
All right, well, let her rip, Tater Chip. What you got?
Okay, well, we're again looking at the Durupinar boat formation, the Durupinar Noah's Ark site, which is about 30 minutes from where I live here in eastern Turkey. And this is the site that Ron Wyatt made popular as being the buried remains of Noah's Ark, and we believe that is the case. Of course, we're looking forward to excavations being done by the Turkish authorities. But we want to look at some of the scans today that have been done in the past. Again, when I'm talking about scans, I'm talking about this geophysical surveys that are non-destructive because no one has been allowed to excavate. And excavation is kind of a destructive science. You're obviously pulling out material that you can't put back. So people have used in different archaeological sites and for oil exploration and others, for construction, geophysical surveys to see what's below the ground. And so we're going to kind of do an overview today from the 1980s onward until this most recently when the Turkish government did some scans. We're going to talk about them, and hopefully this will help show why we believe that there's something there that's man-made and it's the shape of a boat. So, in the 1980s, so we're going to just kind of go in chronological order. And so in the 1980s, Ron Wyatt started his main work on the site. His first visit was in the late 70s, but he didn't do really any geophysical surveys until the mid-1980s when they were doing metal detector scans. And so with the metal detector scans, they were able to see a pattern of metal just within the boat formation. A lot of people who are critics, they basically ignore this. And only one person that I've seen wrote an article that tried to explain why you're finding this pattern inside the boat. I think that was Professor Collins. He co-wrote an article with David Fasold, who at the time had changed his mind, though some have said that before he died, Fasold went back to believing that it was Noah's Ark. But at any rate, they both wrote this paper kind of trying to show that this was a natural formation. And in Fasold's view, it could have been maybe what the ancient people thought was Noah's Ark. They see this boat-shaped rock, he said, and so maybe it was what they claimed was Noah's Ark, and they were visiting it. He was speculating there. But at any rate, in the 1980s, the mid-1980s, Ron Wyatt, and then later with Fasold and others, did do metal detector scans. These scans were showing that there's a pattern, some places every 9 feet, that's only within the boat formation. And so when you go out into the surrounding fields and mud flow, that earth flow that's around it, that jumble of rocks and dirt, you don't find any pattern. And so that got more people interested in the site when they saw this and realized that, hey, maybe there's something here below the ground. And then Ron did extensive GPR work. Back then it was analog, so you had a little printout, this thermal paper that would print out the scans on as they're scanning the object. And he used multiple antennas. So GPR stands for ground penetrating radar. I'm not an expert, but basically it's recording the response of these frequencies that's being sent to the ground, kind of like sonar on a submarine, and it's able then to produce on paper and now digital what is below the ground. Sometimes showing really fine shapes, and other times you have to excavate, obviously, to figure out what it is. But like archaeologists use this, especially if you can get if you're in an area where you can't excavate yet. They would usually use this to try to find the best spot to excavate, or just to see what's below the ground without removing the topsoil. And so again, this is peering below the soil. Now, Ron believed that it was showing this, basically the remains of a boat with all the bulkheads and other structures you would find on a wooden ship. And so this was his diagram that he created after his many scans in the mid to late 80s. Then later, actually about the same time, some Turkish scientists came in because this was hitting the news a lot in Turkey and in the West. Ron Wyatt and David Fazlul, they were making the news. And so they brought in their own scientists. And most people don't know this, about there are 2 papers that they did publish, in which it's all in Turkish, but you can translate it. And they were trying to basically say that they believed it was a natural object. This was written in 1985. We have links to these papers, and we finally were able to find them on the Turkish government science websites. We found where we can order them. We bought our copies of these PDF files. But these 1985 reports, they had different diagrams, and here they're saying like this was, I believe, a syncline. They're basically saying that based on the geology of the area, this boat fits where it's at, being part of the surrounding hills, and it's not like a unique object there. So that was their report. But by the way, you can download these off our website, noahsarkscans.com. We have a section there under research, I believe, where we have all the different reports. So we're open to everything. We're not just trying to say, hey, it's Noah's Ark. We're also letting people who say it's not Noah's Ark, if they've done some type of scientific report, we put it up there. And so you can make your own mind up. So these reports are there along with everyone else's that we've found so far, plus our own. So anyways, this is from the 1985 report. Here's another image from these extensive reports done in 1985. I believe they were published in 86. And then this is about the same time that Dr. Saleh Barak Tutan got involved, and he's a retired professor of geology from a nearby university, and he's still around. An older guy, but he has done the most work on this site versus anyone else. In fact, we met with him a couple times last year, and we're hoping that he can do more work on this site because he has all this knowledge, and we would like to record everything he has on it on video, do a series where he explains about the region and the history of the site and what he's done and why he believes it is a man-made structure. He believes this is a boat. So he's a very important figure in the history of the research of the site. And he was involved with some of the early scans with some Americans, like with Dr. John Baumgartner, who at the time believed it was Noah's Ark. And so in 1987, they also did GPR, or ground penetrating radar. You can see their grid system they use. I believe it was every 2 meters or so. They did these grids across the boat in both directions, I think. Definitely this way, going on horizontal on the screen there. And then they also were able to get some really interesting results from that they published in I think the same year they published it, 1987. And they're showing, here's some screenshots. And now, again, this is images done taken of this thermal paper. So this is not digital, so it's a scan of a scan, and this is the best quality that John Baumgartner could give us. And they saw something interesting that had this V shape. Now this is not corrected for the terrain, because the boat itself is, if you're walking on it, on the top of the ground, it's uneven, it's not as flat. And so, but with the radar, they were showing that there was something there a couple meters below the surface. I want to say 2 to 3 meters, from up to 9 feet, maybe a little shallower. but it was across the whole boat. They were seeing this. So they really wanted to excavate. Of course, no one has done that yet, but they were seeing this this layer of high density materials versus the surrounding soil.
It almost looks like beams.
Yeah, I mean, again, hard to know what it is, but if you think this is Noah's Ark, it could be the remains of the deck, or it could be the beams that supported the deck. We're talking about more about an ancient ship and how it decays later on, but for now, this is some of the results that if this was just a natural rubble of dirt and rock, you would not see this. And so if I go back, this point here, which is the way they did the grid system, this was negative 18 meters from the center line. So right where that arrow and the highlighted red line is, that's where they got this result. So again, and they're seeing this across the site, not just that one area where they scan, not just there, but across the whole site. So each one of these lines produced a scan, and we have this report on our website too. So again, noahsarkscans.com. You will find, you can download this and look at it yourself and zoom in and do whatever you want to do with it. This is their official 1987 report about the GPR work that they did. Now, Dr. Dr. Archangel, he is basically the father of Turkish archaeology. And he's called that because a lot of Turkish archaeologists today studied under him. He's no longer around, but he started the whole archaeology program in the country of Turkey. And he's well known for finding, for example, the remains of the Hittite Empire. He proved that the Hittites existed when no one knew who they were. So in 1985, I believe it was, or March of 85, Ron Wyatt and David Fazel visited him at his home in Ankara. And he looked over just the basic information, like the photographs and the metal detector scans, and he said, "This is the remains of an ancient ship, and it has to be preserved." And we've been telling everyone that since that time that, hey, we need the site preserved because it's slowly decaying away. And I believe the Turks are really interested in doing that. But at any rate, here's a very important archaeologist. Who, before even the GPR scans were out, was saying that, like, hey, this is the remains of the ship. We need to have this preserved. Now, after the 80s and into the 90s, you still had critics, though. And most of these critics, I would say, did not do any work on the site. They'd either come there and visit there once. No one had a permit to do any work. So these guys would write up articles about what they thought it was. And again, this whole idea that this is a rock formation that's sitting in this valley and that it corresponds to the surrounding hills. And here I'm trying to show that it was a syncline with the same rock type on both sides. And you had other reports coming out showing that, claiming that it was this rock that slid down the mountainside. And then over time, over millions of years, glaciers formed it into a ship shape. Those are what the critics will say about the ship. But no one, like, all this stuff was written before some of the most recent scans were done that disproved these claims. So since the 90s, there's actually, you could say probably since the early 90s or late 80s, there's never been any full-scale work done on the boat, whether it's scans or anything else. So in 2014, a private individual who's an engineer with training in geophysical work, John Larson from New Zealand, he was able to get a permit to scan the boat. And I was part of the team. I brought in the media guys, and so we filmed the whole thing. If you go to his website, these are just screenshots from his website. But if you go to noahsarkscans.nz or NZ, you can pull up what he's printed and his interpretation of his scans. Now, the most famous thing that came out from his scans was this, from this angle, it looks like I call it a beached whale, but it looks like the hull of a ship. And so he put this out on his website, and then others have put it on YouTube and done interviews about it. And I myself have also, since I was there. and talked to him a lot about it. But on his website here, again, this is a screenshot from his website, but he explained what he believes the remains below are like based on the scans that he did in 2014. He did a total of 13 scans on the site, I believe, and they're all focused in on that boat to see what's under the ground. And so he had, I forget how long the cable was, but it definitely was longer than the boat. The boat itself was, again, 515 feet long, or 300 Egyptian cubits. And so to see below the ground with ERT, you need a cable that's longer than the object you're looking at. So his cable, let me explain. ERT has to do with electricity, and so you use basically a car battery or some other system that will give you power out in the field, and then that will shoot electrical current into the soil, and then you have these steel pins that are in the ground, and the configuration depends on what you're trying to do. But I think a lot of his pins were every like 2 or 3 meters into the ground, and he did 13 of these scans that peered below the soil, and then the readings are collected back on a little chip back in the central unit, and then you can download that data into 3D software and ERT software that can then interpret the model, and you can filter and do whatever. And so he came up with what's one of the most interesting things is showing that how the boat's laid out, because the middle of the boat is wider than what the Bible says. And the Bible talks about it being, I believe, 50 cubits wide or so. 50 cubits. But his measurement, his data is showing that the boat fell apart, just like Ron Wyatt claimed, and what a typical wooden boat does when it sits out or is buried in the dirt. It starts splaying apart and falling apart. And so that's definitely what he was showing, that if you were to put this middle piece back, this piece that's wider in the middle of the boat formation, you would get exactly in the middle 50 cubits. And so all this information is on his website. Here's a close-up view, a screenshot from his website explaining this. And he also believed that the data was showing that if you add up all the different layers below, the amount of space between each thick layer, which he thought might have been the decks, you would get the height of the boat. So he believed that the measurements given by Moses in Genesis, the 50 cubits and the 30 cubits and even the 300 cubits long, that is the internal dimensions showing the capacity of the boat, and not telling us how wide the ceiling, like the support beam for the floor was, or how wide the hull, or how thick was the hull. We don't know. So he believed that the internal measurements matches what the biblical account says, being 30 cubits. When he adds up each of those measurements between the layers, you get 30 cubits. And so that's, again, you can read about it on his website. And then he was also showing on some of the outside areas of this boat formation, again, inside the dirt, because you're looking inside the dirt, because we're not excavating. So these scans are showing possible beams, wooden, it could have been petrified wood, that would be the rib timbers of a boat. And this is on the west side towards the rock. And if I had it, I don't have the slides on the exact location of this, but they tried to stick some of their steel pins without knowing that this was there into the ground right there, because they were doing the survey line. And the pins wouldn't go in. Like it was only 2 inches in, I think he said, you hit this hardened layer. But it was about 2 feet wide and 20 feet tall. And so they had to move over past the 2 feet mark, and they were able to stick the pins in. But then when they processed the data, they realized what was the issue, why these pins would not go into the ground right there, is that below the surface is this highly resistant material that looks like you could possibly say a timber, a rib of a ship, petrified rib timber. And so this was, again, really interesting seeing that from his ERT scans. So this got a lot of the Turks interested at the time. So this was 2014 that this was done. And then from that point on, because I was part of the media of that team, I talked to my local contact here at Zafir. I said, hey, let's try to do more. Let's use this data to pursue excavations to do more studies on the boat, and that with a lot of ups and downs, but that's kind of where we've been doing this, what we've been doing since 2014 up till now.
Join us this Saturday, March the 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live Q&A with Andrew Jones from Discovered Media. He is the expert on all things Ron Wyatt. He is the lead investigator at the Noah's Ark site in Turkey. He also leads tours of the Exodus route through the Red Sea crossing into the real Mount Sinai. So, if you're fascinated with Ron Wyatt's work and these biblical historical sites, and you have questions, this is the man you need to come and talk to. So, if you'd like to participate, I encourage you, head on over to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and sign up for the All Access Pass. You will get an email 30 minutes before the show begins. You click the link and come on in for the live Q&A session. Look forward to seeing you guys. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode, I encourage you to head on over to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and sign up for our All Access Pass. It's $10 a month. It comes out to 33 cents a day. It gets you 48-hour early access to all episodes, members-only episodes, access to the private community, and that comes with monthly Q&As and member chats. So we talk with authors and other great speakers, and you guys get to ask them your questions every single month. We also offer a smaller tier package that is just $4 a month, and with that gets you access to the 48-hour early access, the monthly chats, and the Q&As. The only thing that does not get you is the members only episodes like the one you just saw. But if you enjoyed that, head on over, sign up. It's quick, it's easy, and get access to not only this episode that you just saw, but many, many other great exclusive content. Torch is high.